Hello, I am Radagast with Global Mission of Peace's Mystic View, number 22, and I am joined by my co-host, Shelly Evans. Hello, Shelly.
Hello everyone.
And tonight's topic is going to be called, well, currently it's making the rounds as Wetiko. Now, I know when I first heard this word many years ago, it was known as Wendigo. Now, Wendigo is a Cree name is, I guess, the proper Cree name. Although, having done some due diligence and looking into this, Wendigo is very much describes a person who's kind of broken from the tribe, and they often describe somebody who has unusually long life and tends to like to torture people and cannibalize them. Sounds a little bit like Golem. So that's a very specific Cree definition for somebody who has gotten this illness. But in Wetiko, and apparently there's a guy named Paul Levy who's recently written a book about it. It's specifically, and how I'm like to present it, as a mind virus, a human mind virus. And although he takes it into what I consider to be almost standard psychological territory. I mean, when I heard his breakdown of it, it was kind of like borrowing from Jung's unconscious, but then kind of almost trying to settle it a little bit into Freud's categorization of what he called psychology. I mean, there are a lot of people who take Freud to task, and I'd gladly be one of them. But that's not the hint of, that's not the gist of this show. But I mean, somebody, some coked out person using all of that super, crazy charged cerebral energy, and then coming up with what is currently psychoanalysis. Just might give you an idea of why we have a society that, despite the fact that they go to these people, don't usually get better. They get billed, but they don't get better. So to me, this is an important, because it kind of ties in with our last show, Shelley, the one when we were speaking about contrived history and the concept of a parasitic strain of humanity that is basically anti-human in its psychology, in its mindset, and a lot of the behaviors associated with this Wetiko mind virus I think this mind virus is actually the cause of what we see of kind of what we'll call soulless human beings, people that are devoid of empathy. Maybe one of the symptoms of this mind virus could be psychopathy, being a psychopath, and like a light version of it would be sociopathy, or being a sociopath. Okay, that's just the beginning of all this. You want to kind of come in here and?
Well, I'm having all kinds of flashbacks from the last Mystic View that we did, but instead of repeating what we said there, let's just not terrify everybody straight out of the gate here. And I will just add that Wetiko is in fact containing its own medicine. Mm-hmm. The cure and the disease are one.
Right, well, like the homeopathic principle.
Like the homeopathic principle. Alchemy, we can come back to that. The homeopathic principle, okay, we know the body has the ability to heal itself. That is homeopathy. Like cures, like the law of similars, for example. There's 3 laws in homeopathy, but the law of similars is what I was referring to with the alchemy, in that in Latin terms it is coincidentia oppositorum, and really what that means is the coming together, the combining of the opposites is what gives you the resolve.
Okay, do you want to maybe expand on that a little bit, just for people? I mean, that's quite a mouthful, and coincidence, and we're talking about a coincidence or the happening at the same time, that or something that appears to be a coincidence, but in opposites.
Okay, I'm not sure that this will help or make it further mysterious, but the Tao speaks of this. This is our yin and our yang. The duality lies at the origins of many of the branches of classic Chinese philosophy as well. However, it's really the superposition of states that we're talking about, the wave or the particle. And I believe even Paul Levy had mentioned that as well, that it really comes down to your choice. It's a little bit like being lucid in dreaming. Well, if we could perhaps be lucid in our awake state as well, and making conscious choice about the opposites as they combine, and our perception, and that we respond to this instead of reacting. And so the aim of the alchemical work, the highest grade alchemy, consisted in the union of the total man. Right? Like I said, in mystical traditions, that's referred to as transcendence.
Mm-hmm.
And that's our way out.
Okay, you just said something there, and I wish I had written it down because it was a jump-off point for me.
Self is the conjunction of opposites.
Mm-hmm.
How about that? It's coming to a consciousness of self, of seeing oneness, of seeing the collective.
Okay, well, I want to get back to the homeopathic principle and maybe that'll jog me, because there's
the succession, right? It's the vibrating that strengthens the potency.
The succussion.
And Wetiko is also giving us a good shake for, it's really shaking us up here. But that's what also gives us the power. It's like if it doesn't kill you, it's going to make you stronger.
Like childhood diseases.
Yes, like childhood diseases.
I know currently, the wisdom of just a few generations ago, basically when I was in school, a young person. Back then we would have, if somebody had the measles or something, you'd be sent over their house so you could contract it. That's how we got immunized.
Wisdom.
And everybody knew that if you were going to be immunized against these diseases, you wanted to be immunized as a prepubescent human being. After pubescence, things get a little bit trickier. I think it's because there's more chemicals going. You're processing a lot more. And also, I think when you go into adulthood, now you're dealing with the stresses of adulthood. And so any disease or pathogen is testing you. And so as a child, before the hormones, before the stress, you're definitely kind of very well set, if you're healthy, to go through this with just, hey, I missed school for 2 weeks. Now for me, that was like, all right. Mm-hmm. So, almost all of them, measles, mumps, chickenpox, they all were like a 2 week away from school kind of illness. So those were weeks I enjoyed. I might have been itching a little bit and felt a little woozy from not eating, but not being in school was worth all of it for me.
And then plus you had lifetime immunity, which the people who are receiving the vaccinations no longer can consider themselves immune.
Yes.
These are cropping back up again. That's why we really need to get it right here.
Well, apparently some recent whooping cough outbreak in recent months occurred in an inoculated population. So anyway, this is not a discussion about vaccines and efficacy or lack thereof. But the fact that to really become inoculated is to experience the actual disease and where your body goes through the process. It now knows what this is, and it can never ever, the antibodies are built, and you're no longer susceptible to it. And I really believe that, lucid dreaming is what I want to speak about. But the Wetiko mind virus in many ways is kind of like a species disease that we need to almost go through and emerge on the other side, having now being psychologically immunocompetent. where the equivalent of our physical immune system in our energy body now recognizes certain energetic inputs as something that is not beneficial to the organism and does not allow for its propagation. Because the virus, any kind of virus, actually cannot replicate. It has to connive, trick, bypass the defenses of a replicating cell and go, oh, here's a little package for you, which happens to be a package of DNA, and next thing you know, you have the cell producing yourself for it, and that's a cell that's not immunocompetent. It's not competent. It can't tell right from wrong. It doesn't make a bad, weak, or anything. It just hasn't been through that education.
Right, and that's the important part, is being immunocompetent, so that you are recognizing what is useful, we'll keep this, what is harmful, trash.
Now, I know I've gone into this a little bit in some other mystic views, because it's a kind of recurrent theme with me about the thymus gland. It's why I normally wear blue-green, but I forgot my blue-green scarf at somebody's house. So I just had to wear green.
Yeah, but maybe there's a stronger message in the green today.
Maybe there is.
What is the green combined of? How do you make green?
You make it with yellow and blue, which in my studies, the yellow is the body or lower will, and blue is the communicative or higher will. And it's kind of interesting that the heart energy is a combined of the colors of the two wills.
Yeah.
And that immunocompetence in the body, where T cells learn how to differentiate and to know what isn't wanted and what can be left alone, is done in the thymus, which interestingly is a combination of, is blue-green, which is a combination of the heart and the higher will. And to me, the higher will is the more informed will. Not that the lower will is useless. The lower will has a lot of important bodily function things. I mean, being hungry is definitely a sense of the will going, I need to eat. And it's at a very biological level. It's not necessarily part of higher will. How you get your food might be part of higher will. Like you go, ooh, I could kind of pull up a bunch of peanuts off a bush, or I could shoot the squirrel. Higher will might go for the peanuts, brother or sister. But that's just my take on higher will. And so lucid dreaming, to me, that was such a crucial thing. And I remember hearing you say that the other day. Might have been on a Kevin Baker show, but how many of us really are sleepwalking? In many ways, we're doing waking life like we do dreaming life, where we kind of come, oh, I had this really weird dream. It's like the dream happened to you, okay? And then for many of us, life happens to us. So the way you kind of change a dream from happening to you is you wake up in a dream and you start to direct it. That's lucid dreaming. So one of the ways that you take charge of your life is you start to lead a lucid life.
Yeah, you make choices. And so those choices, like you opened with the Freudian thing, I think really the answer there is, if you're not sure, just check in with your heart. Your heart will direct you in the highest way.
I think we're a theme has developed for myself and you, and that is that the heart is really the crux of our existence. It's not to make the other chakras, because when I say the heart, I do mean the heart chakra, not so much the physical heart, the consciousness of the heart, which is the heart chakra. And it's not that any of the other ones are less important. They're obviously all part of a continuum. But the focus, and it seems, again, it's the central hub. Everybody knows we have 12 and possibly 13 chakras, but in your body, along your spine, you have 7. Yes, you have other chakras on the palms of your hand, you have on the soles of your feet, you have chakras everywhere. But I'm talking about the main seats of consciousness, not just other portals. And the heart is, what I'm getting is where the balance, where homeostasis occurs, like basically the 3 lower chakras of the biological self, and then the higher chakras of the more etherealized self find balance or homeostasis in the heart. And so that the answers that will serve us, because we're both a spirit and a body, so we kind of have these packets of 3 chakras that kind of address each one, finding balance in the heart. And being as we are a spiritual being having a physical experience, we're going to need the balance. We can't, like some Gnostics, the whole physical world is evil, and that we should only live a spiritual life. Some of them were down, to the point of being celibate, which from a biological point of view is dumb. I mean, the whole purpose of biology is that, that species continues. Well, celibacy is not very conducive to continuing. And if the ones who kind of have some understanding of the universe don't procreate and pass on that information, then you're going to end up with a bunch of people who don't have the information. So anyway.
Well, yeah, no, that's true. And so really that draws us back to the whole alchemical supposition behind that, right? Where it's the homeostasis. For instance, if you have something hot, it will tend to cool off. If you have something wet, it's going to dry out. That was spoken as cognition lapsing into contradiction whenever it sought to apprehend the infinite. And isn't that what we're all trying to do, is understand the infinite? We perceive ourselves as duality, as separate, but yet somewhere we know we're eternal, infinite beings, and religion wants to teach us all about being eternal, infinite beings. And yet to apprehend or to comprehend the infinite, it seems to contradict itself. And so it's the existing and the collective, understanding it, seeing it in the full 360 degrees simultaneously, instead of having this opinion and then taking the pendulum swing, going, okay, now I get that opinion, and eventually you come into the center of understanding. It's that balance. Mm-hmm. And really, I think the balance resolves Wetiko or Wendigo.
Yeah, and the reason of bringing this up is so we can conduct our own inward look from a hygienic point of view, to look for maybe signs that because of this virus manifesting in your life. Now, what we call the psychopaths, many the cabal, the bad elite and all the rest of that, those tired memes. What we're looking at is a sick population. And the interesting thing is whether or not this is as organic to us and as natural, a kind of a rite of passage. Excuse me. Because basically speaking, from an organism point of view, the childhood diseases are rites of passage. You need to be healthy enough to get past the diseases to have a healthy adult life. And should you get hit with these diseases in adult life, you might not fare well. So they're kind of a rite of passage. So, what I'm wondering is whether or not this Wetiko virus is a rite of passage and again, enable us to exist at higher planes of existence. Because what is really becoming very obvious, especially from when you read the ancient texts, that what a lot of people are getting from the ancient texts is that, we interacted with ETs. What gets missed is that we were also interacting greatly with EDs, which is not erectile dysfunction, but extra dimensionals. And it appears, from what I can tell, it appears that we've had a much richer or greater enrichment from the extra dimensionals and what to do on the planet than from the extraterrestrials. So I almost wonder if some of this kind of mind virus wasn't brought by extraterrestrials, or whether or not it's just part of some of the hurdles that we as a species have to go. I mean, it's the torture test. And then we go, that sounds cruel. When I mean a torture test, I'm using it a little bit like when you have a product and so you want to drop it a few times, you want to whack it, or, you maybe throw it in water. You want to see, how does it stand up to the environment? Simple environmental stresses, nothing more, nothing brutal. It's like when you buy a car, a car, you kick the tires, maybe you open and close the door, it's not you're trying to torture it. You don't want it to divulge any secrets under duress. It's just, what are you made of? Do you look like you are as sturdy as you are? Or, is that really a brick wall, or is it a curtain with bricks painted on it? Well, I'm going to have to kick it. Ow. Oh, it is really brick. Okay. We got that figured out. Thought it might have been a curtain. So, these kind of hurdles that I really believe is important, because again, we're naturally not organic. We're naturally spirit. We're naturally, I'm not going to say inorganic, but we're not biology. And so the biological state is something that spirit is moving into, and has for a long time. But I don't even want to say a long time, because there is no real time. Really, there is no real time. There's now, and when we can say a long time, and there's validity to that. But it's also important in my, like, the more we can take things off of timelines, the more we can just look at them in their eternal now, and that we can apprehend them. I feel better that way. So that's the whole thing, is whether or not what the source of this Wetiko is. But most importantly, sometimes it isn't always important to know where it came from, other than what do we do with the situation? What is of utility for us?
Well, Wetiko certainly holds a wake-up call for all of us. I have the feeling, as you were speaking, that it very much comes in, as you were saying, with the sense of duality, where that came in from. Duality, separation, and I think the answer comes from recombining, being more than the sum of our parts, being that whole, collective, one, where each individual is essential, but yet the collective, we need everybody to be their individual, but we need to function as a whole, just like the body needs each organ to be its individuality, but we need to function as a whole. It's an infinite, I think, feedback to convince us, really, on the one hand, on the drawback of the proof of duality, right? I mean, that's kind of the matrix thing. But once we catch it, once the observer sees it, now we've named it, we can process it, and we can cast it aside and become all that we are, become that divine God spark, where that's directing us, instead of constantly being derailed by the fear. And I that's what I think it really feeds on. And I think that's an essential component to Wetiko's survival. And we're just not there anymore as a species. We just don't respond to fear like we did even a year ago, but especially by comparison of a decade ago.
Well, you use the matrix word again. And of course, matrix is a word that, especially owing to the movies, have given us something that I believe is quite relevant and real. But I like to call it patrix. Because for me, matrix is the original organic creation that everything is built on. And the patrix is this thing that kind of has almost like a vine that grows on a tree. The tree was already there, then the vine uses the tree for support, and it can even mask the tree. And you say, oh, look, an ivy tree. No, it's actually an oak tree with ivy all over it. And even when we get into, let's matrix is mother, patrix is father. And the difference kind of like between inclusiveness and kind of creating discrete parts that sometimes can, through that creating of discrete parts, can sometimes lead to lack of assimilation, to pull away from the whole. Here's, to me, the best example would be, let's take a mother who has 10 kids. Okay, and let's say 3 fathers. Okay. So from the mother's perspective, she has 10 kids. Now we talk to the fathers and you go, oh, your kids? Oh no, 3 of them are mine. In other words, there's, oh, 4 of them are mine. And the other one goes, oh yeah, another 3 are mine. So from the matrix perspective, these are all her kids. From the patrix perspective, no, this group is mine. And now they might get along, but we don't, who knows what the patrix is saying to them to, you know, will they say, oh, you're my group, and, you know, you can be friendly to them, but, you know, we got to stay discreet. And again, I mean, and to me, that's why what I also see about why I call it the patrix, because part of this, what I consider the parasitic overlay on the organic matrix, is this kind of the same way, you know, the way the left brain works. You know, it's into discrete parts. It'll take a whole and dissect it and go, oh, it's made, you know, it's this, it's this, it's this, it's this. When meanwhile, when you put them together, there's only one thing. So I mean, I didn't mean to get off of the Wetiko thing, but I mean, I guess I'm trying to introduce a new meme, and I'm not the first person to do this. I heard somebody else. Well, actually, I did it first, and then I saw somebody else make a video about Patrix. But then when I listened to it, the word was great, the concept was great, but the explanation of the concept was really goofy. So anyway, I won't be putting a link up to that video.
Well, the point is that we are all interrelated, and we are having a collective dream, and everybody involved in the dream is having an influence and influencing others.
And that's where we come back to
lucid.
Lucid living.
Lucidity, yes.
Yeah, because I mean, right now everybody's like, oh, I'm trying to lucid dream, I'm trying to lucid dream. That's a really noble thing to do, but try to lucid live. Mm-hmm. And I mean, and we can catch ourselves all the time. I mean, if you're getting ready to go for a drive and you're busy, all kinds of stuff, and you get in your car, you go, oh, crap, I forgot, I left my keys on the kitchen table. Well, you knew, so you can't tell me you weren't sleepwalking. Mm-hmm. I mean, you needed your car, you're going out to your car, you're going to need your keys, and you forget your keys. Now, again, this is all simple stuff, but these are little clues to us of how much we sleepwalk, how much we are not lucid living.
Right. And, you know, here's something that you will probably be interested in, too, is my take on it is much like the trickster, Wetiko. It's much like that coyote. The trickster, right? And it only plays until it's seen. And once it's seen, hey, the game's over, and it goes off to play somewhere else.
Yes. Well, it does. It is about correct is a tricky word. It is about choosing. How about choosing wisely? Because this will bring us back to the heart. Because for me, wisdom isn't knowledge. It's gnosis, or knowing. And most importantly, it's knowing the right thing to do in the moment. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So we're constantly kind of coming back to this heart-centered place where to lucidly live, and which means to be awake enough to realize that, like, at every given time you have like these choices. You're moving into the next moment, and the next moment is move here or move there. And the wisdom to pick, rather than the correct choice, the wise choice, is wisdom is synonymous with heart knowledge, or knowing, or gnosis. And so if you want to be wise, you go into your heart and go, okay, of these two things, I'm a little confused. Ask your heart.
That's right. Ask your heart and dream yourself awake. We can dream ourselves awake here.
Yes. And going into even the concept of, reality itself is the creator's dream. So as we walk through, this macro created dream with our micro dreaming, we need to be lucid, or else, like a dream, it'll happen to us instead of us directing it. And really, whether you're lucid dreaming or lucid living, the main thing is you're the driver. You're actually at the steering wheel. You're picking the speed, when to brake, when to turn, whenever. You are in control, as opposed to the average dream, which is the equivalent of you being in the passenger seat with an invisible driver taking you oh my God, we went down the strangest roads, blah, blah, blah. Well, that's because you didn't drive your dream. And waking life can be very much the same. Matter of fact, for many people, that's exactly what it is. It's a sleepwalking life, and people find themselves in situations, how did I get here? And if they could follow it back, they would realize that they got there because when they could have gone left, they went right, or vice versa.
Right, and that heart can lead you to your God spark, because what we know is that we're actually fragments of light. Or, oh, come on, we all know that everything about us is photon. That's light. And as just a little reminder that as the light comes into the shadows, it appears darker, right? So don't give up at that last minute when what you're doing is flushing those dark shadows to the surface, to be seen, to be observed, so that it can be sent out.
Now, the other question, it's almost an uncomfortable, or should I say consideration, is, okay, if we had an outbreak of a disease in a community, usually we would try to quarantine, or, especially if it's, with measles, you don't quarantine. You actually do your best to expose everybody, at least all the kids. But in certain things that might be a lot more taxing and a lot more potentially fatal than measles or mumps or something like that. Occasionally, it might be wise to cordon off certain things. So now when we're dealing with a societal disease like Wetiko, what do we do with the sick ones? And I'm not saying I have an answer, but the thing is that, of course, the most important thing is make sure you're not one of the sick ones.
Well, actually, I don't know about that, because what I think finds the most efficient response to that is if we see something outside of ourselves and we find it, we need to find where that still exists in us, because there's still the principle that it's reflecting something back about us, where we haven't received, like maybe an area in our life where we haven't loved ourselves. And so the more we can find any of those things existing in us, we have the power to clear it when it's within us, not when it's somebody else.
No,
we can only deal with it from our own personal action. And I find that is very effective. And in fact, there's a pretty famous surgeon who, before any surgery, he'll take the records of whomever is his patient of the day, whatever surgery. I'm pretty sure he's a heart surgeon. He'll go through their symptoms. He will locate an analogy or something that he can relate to in himself. He will heal it in himself. He will balance it, okay? He will bring it back into homeostasis. And then when he goes in to do the surgery, I mean, this is a phenomenal percentage of times where the patient is miraculously healed, or at the very minimum, the surgery just goes, swimmingly.
Well, when I said I didn't have an answer, once you spoke, an answer came to me.
Ah.
And it was just dealing with with how often this virus, like any other virus, it really can't replicate itself. So unless it has a dance partner or a partner, it's dead in the water. Similarly, with parasitic conditions, unless it has a free meal, it can't survive. So again, this comes back to our own personal hygiene, where the two forms are: A, you don't engage with a virus, because that's what that's the whole thing is that a virus will trick you to playing with it, and then it gets you to produce for it because it cannot produce. Or in the case of parasitism, where often it's feeding off energy or other things, you don't engage into the behavior. You yourself do not engage in the behaviors that feed this, and so ultimately there's no sustenance for it. I mean, it's really like the difference between the germ theory that Louis Pasteur came up with, and then the other people of the day said, no, it's all about the terrain. Similarly, and as I've told many people, I mean, you look at a lawn, and if you leave it alone, you'll have dandelions all over the lawn. You go to the beach, and you don't see a single dandelion. Why? Because the terrain is incorrect. It can't support it. So it really kind of comes down to whether it's with engagement or energetic feeding, rather than having to quarantine, all you have to do is recognize in yourself your own health, and then you don't engage with and you don't feed, and that would end up clearing it. As long as you're engaged, as long as you're part of the game, as long as you're playing the game, the gamester, the trickster will remain.
Yes, yeah, that's for sure. What that also brought for me too was to think of where our solar system, where our planet is in our solar system, and the photons, the light that we are receiving from the sun. So much has been directed to keep us out of the sun and to not honor that wisdom and that healing. But I think it's inevitable. I think, yes, it's the onus is on us to do our work, but I believe we are simply receiving those healing photons from the sun. You know, aton is the light that illumines maybe that plasma ball that you referred to as the great central sun, and that it can only be seen with the inner eye, but we can still engage with it because we're not just three-dimensional beings. That's what I think the trickster wants us to believe, is that we're exclusively three-dimensional beings. That's all you are, folks. And now you need to learn how to ascend and become something other. But in fact, that's not the case at all.
Agreed.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we are only tracking a small percentage of what we're doing here in this beta mindset. Really, there's the full expression of us. And that's what we need to tap into. And then we have our guidance.
Yes. Well, I think we should take a quick break and then come back with the good news.
Oh, let's do that.
All right. We'll be right back. And I hope this was helpful for you. We kind of bringing up a subject, and it's a deep subject. I mean, it really affects our species. You look at the world right now and you can see there's a lot of infected people. And we're trying to bring some rhyme, some reason, and I guess it's really about our perception and going into our heart space, that we don't have to go along with this game. And by all means, do your own due diligence. Wetiko has now, I mean, Zen Garden has posted on it. It's shown up in the past week. It's shown up everywhere. Kind of, it's like one of the hot topics. So that's one of the reasons we're discussing it. But please look into it on your own. And with some of the things we've shared, maybe when you read it, you won't be so alarmed, and you'll get your own heart knowledge. Okay, we'll be right back.
Global Mission of Peace is a worldwide team of like-hearted individuals focused on a new paradigm of unity, peace, and understanding.
Unity with all people across all borders.
Peace with every faith and religion.
Understanding the true nature of the political, financial, and power structures of our world.
Our focus is not in changing these structures, but in offering a new reality, a new consciousness. Don't you think it's time?
Okay, we're back with the good news part of Mystic View. We don't always remember to do the good news, but we're on top of things today. So I guess I will start out, Shelley. It's just an article I found on Activist Post, and it's called 10 Signs the Global Elite Are Losing Control. And I'm just going to basically read off the bullet points. Official lies are no longer effective. And they say lies they tell simply don't work anymore. I guess that's working for more and more people, no question about it. There's still a lot of people it would be nice if it worked on, but that's one of the signs that the elite are losing control, the global elite. No confidence in politics. Number 3, no confidence in the media. Number 4, bankers rejected. And he brings up Hungary and Iceland and what they've done with their bankers and getting out of debt. And so that's a good sign. The Vatican abruptly cleaning up its act. mutiny among soldiers. And they say, finally, soldiers who are outlawed from making political statements are steadily speaking out against U.S. military adventurism. Okay. Number 7, this is signs that the elite of influence is waning. It says, militarized police state. And I have to read a little of it because you might go, that's not a sign of them waning. And what they're saying here is, one of the darkest signs that the elite are losing their grip on power is the construction of the militarized police state, specifically trained to combat domestic civil unrest. Local cops, blah, 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 blah. So they're clearly scared, and they should be given what they've done to the American people in the Constitution. Okay, again, this is somebody else writing this, but that was sign number 7, the militarized police state. Sign number 8 is serious succession movements everywhere. Number 9, GM food being rejected everywhere. And number 10 is called cannabis liberation. Now, that's certainly a sign and something, I guess, to celebrate. But most importantly, for me, it's Mother Nature being given back to human beings. Cannabis is just, you can really point a finger there. It's something that grows naturally, and the government goes, you may not use what God put on the globe. You know, I mean, there was creation, you were putting here, and you were given all these supplies, and you have a group of people saying, you can't use those supplies. Anybody who doesn't get how cosmically criminal that is as a concept hasn't woken up to their cosmic consciousness. That's all. I mean, you'll get it at some point. So anyway, that's my good news. Oh, and one other little bit of good news. For years, I belonged to an online forum called The One Truth. And actually, the forum, it's a smaller, sleepy forum. Many of us are former Project Avalon, or Bill Ryan's Project Avalon forum, and many of us have been dismissed from Project Avalon for running afoul of Bill's thin skin and very fragile ego. So The One Truth is a kind of a place where we gather, and I have a thread there called ModWiz Videos, and I post my ModWiz videos. So I had posted a couple of the last ones we did, and one of them was a talk on the Lord of the Rings, and somebody had a lot to say, but the last sentence was, oh, and I just have to say that in the Lord of the Rings talk up there, I saw at least 35 different sorts of amazing smiles from Shelley that could probably heal an untold number of people each. So the good news is somebody feels that Shelley's amazing assortment of smiles can heal people. So I'm done with my good news. What do you have, Shelley?
Okay, well, first I have to say thank you so much.
You can quit blushing first.
Really? No, let's inspire to co-inspire. You know what? A smile.
Did you put some rouge on while I was?
No. Okay. I was going to be smooth about this. Let's inspire to co-inspire. We are, as Chell spoke it so eloquently, like-hearted. And although we might not speak the language of everybody, what we have is a smile, and that smile conveys love, and that smile can convey so much.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, healing. And thank you, whoever gave me that lovely compliment.
Well, I would give you their name, but people use usernames. And what is this person's username? Nothing.
Oh, that's nice, deep. We could go there.
A nice compliment from nothing.
Yeah, all right. Well, I'm going to just continue here and perhaps close with this. It's an Egyptian proverb, because now I've asked you all to, I'd ask you, what is your sacred practice? Do you have a sacred practice? What is that? And I'm sure everybody has a sacred practice, and they might not even be aware of it. So by putting attention to it, I think the body can go where the thoughts are directed. So I think we can bring in a lot of very positive energy for that. But I just wanted to finish with this Egyptian proverb. It is, true teaching is not an accumulation of knowledge. It is an awakening of consciousness, which goes through successive stages. And so not to be disheartened, everybody. We're actually sharing and inspiring to co-inspire.
Very good.
That's good news.
Yes, that is good news. Well, thank you, Shelley. And thank you all out there for listening to Mystic View number 22 on Global Mission of Peace TV. I'd like to say goodbye and God bless.